the nature of this project was originally to help Allison with her history fair project. And one of the things that we decided would be a good thing to do would be to link it to real interaction with history. So really getting together to talk about a living history, which is a history of your time service in World War II years, and history of what happened in the Pacific, as well as what happened to you in the Pacific in relation to Allison's history project. And the nature of her theme in her history project is the rights and responsibilities as it relates to history and Americans. And so after talking with Allison, we thought that it was the right of every American to view and interact and witness history and history that's gone by, such as viewing of the Declaration of Independence in the National Archives, which we recently took a trip to view. And it's also the responsibility of every American to accurately help to record history so that others can enjoy it. So that was the impetus of the conversation that led to Allison choosing to do this type of work for her project. And so she did the research. She went online and checked into the Veterans History Project, and she wanted to interview you to record your history. And this recording will be used to help other researchers with their research on World War II history, and it will go into the Library of Congress and be an archived oral history for the Veterans History Project, which is sponsored by the Veterans Affairs Administration. So that was the impetus, and without further ado, I'll turn it over to Allison, and she can conduct her interview.
This is the interview of Wallace Frank Gordon. He was born on June 25, 1925. He served in World War II in the United States Navy. He was an electrician's mate, 3rd class, petty officer. The date is December 30th, 2013, and our interview is taking place in La Plata, Maryland. I am the granddaughter of Wallace Frank Gordon, and my name is Allison Nicole Gordon. I am conducting this interview as part of my History Fair project for my school, Plum Point Middle School. Keith Huntley Gordon, my dad, and Wallace Gordon's son, is assisting in the interview. The interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Where and when were you born?
Where was I born? In New York City. We lived on 5th Avenue in a below the street apartment, and it was right across from Central Park. And I spent quite a few days over there in Central Park playing in the sand pile and what have you.
What were your parents' occupations?
My dad was a top-notch tool maker, and he got his training up in Worcester, Massachusetts, and came down to New York to go to work.
How many siblings did you have?
Siblings, I had just one, my brother James. He was in the Navy too.
How were you affected by the Great Depression, which occurred in the decade that came before World War II?
Well, the Great Depression, that was what we were in. I can't say that I was affected because we didn't know we were poor. But my father had many jobs at that time. He would get laid off of one and he'd go to another one. And there was a time when he couldn't do machinist work. He had to go out and get a job with maybe some people to cut their grass or something like that, or do some work around their house and make a few bucks and do that, you know. And the Depression didn't affect me, as we didn't even know we were in a depression. But we were poor. Sometimes we didn't have enough to eat. Other times when we did have enough to eat, it was usually because we raised it ourselves, chickens and things like that in the yard.
So many people had gardens and things in their
Oh
own.
yeah, we grew our own. Yeah, we had pear trees and cherry trees, and we had a garden and dug it ourselves and grew
And that's how you
food.
got by.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did any other member of your family serve in the military?
Yes, my brother served in the Navy in China during the war. But he went in after I did. I got out in 46, and I guess he was already in there. And he served in China for a while in Tsingtao, and then he came home.
What about your dad, Grandpa? Did he serve?
My father served in the tank corps in World War I. He served for a while under General Dwight Eisenhower, who gave him his sergeant stripes when he got fully trained for the tank corps.
And that was when Eisenhower was a
Captain. He
a
was
captain.
a captain, Eisenhower. He signed my father's papers for being being a sergeant.
Wow. So Grandpa was one of his senior non-commissioned officers.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was quite a guy.
Did that inspire you at all to join the military?
Oh, we spent a lot of time with the American Legion when I was a kid. In the parades, my father played a trumpet in a parade, and he had a uniform, with a big feather in his cap, it's a great big cap and a feather on the top. Blew his trumpet. He liked that.
Yeah.
They'd go down after a parade and drink beer and have a good time at the American Legion Hall.
Let's continue with your entry into the service. How did you enter the service?
Well, I entered the service like any other kid that was there in high school in 43. We were 16, 17 years old, and we wanted to get into the war that had started years before that, but we all wanted to get in. And a fellow by the name of Bill Schultz and I played hooky one day and went over to New York to sign up in the Marine Corps. And we got to the Marine Corps recruiting station there, and they told us, you can't join the Marine Corps for a while because we got such a line of enlistees that want to come in that are before you, and you'd be drafted. You're too old. He says you're going to be drafted in the Army. So we went over to the Navy and joined the Navy. That was kind of nice. Anyhow, we had a good day that day. We got into the service.
Yeah. And you signed on the dotted line right there?
Yes, right there.
And they told you where to report from there?
No, they sent us. I think they sent us our instructions how to go to. I think we went over to New York to the New York recruiting station, and then on up to Newport, Rhode Island.
Grandpa, could you tell me about this letter that recruited you to wherever you went?
Let's see. Oh yeah, this letter here was directing me to report to the United States Navy recruiting station in Madison Avenue, New York City. You are hereby directed to report to the Navy Recruiting Station, and it's at 303 Madison Avenue, New York City, at 88 Vanderbilt Avenue, enlistment, sworn in and transferred to the Naval Training Station at 8 o'clock on 15th of June, 1943. If you were advised by the medical officer at this station to have your earwax removed, teeth repaired, and so forth, correct these defects before you report to be sworn in. You are advised to bring with you only toilet articles and cash not exceeding $6. It is not necessary to bring articles of clothing other than that which you will wear. After you are outfitted at the training station, you will send your civilian clothing home. Bring this letter when reporting to room 611, and it's signed J. Forte, Chief Yeoman, USNR. I wrote back and asked them if it would be all right to come a little later because I wanted to graduate from high school. So I did graduate and went in a little bit later.
Did you go to a training base or boot camp, and how did you get there?
Yeah, we got to Newport, Rhode Island, and went by train from New York, and got into Newport, Rhode Island, and we went down on the base at Magruder's Island Boot Camp. And that's where I did my training for boots.
Do you remember about how long your training was?
No, I don't.
Was it a summer?
Probably 6 weeks or something like that. 6 weeks. It wasn't too long, but then they assigned me to electrical school, so I went from Magruder's Island over to the base in Newport and went to electrical school over there. Got to be trained as an electrician for a ship.
Do you remember your drill instructors or your...
Oh, my boot instructor, I remember. By God, he was some guy. He had a way of dressing that employed a physical look of a tight, sharp dresser who knew how to do everything that he wanted to do with recruits.
And he taught you how to look that way?
Yeah, he taught how to curl your hat down, your white hat, how to curl it, and how to put your pants in a little hook that snapped when you walked,
Yeah.
Under the boots that you wore, it would snap as you walked. Quite a guy. Yeah.
How did you adapt to military life? In what ways was it different than normal life?
Adaptation to military life. I have to remember that we slept in hammocks on plain pipe racks across the barracks. And you hung your hammock between them, and every night you rolled it up and you tied it up. And at night, when you went to bed, you unrolled it and got it in your hammock, went to sleep. I remember that part of it.
Was it hard to adapt by social life, physical regimen, barracks, and the food changes?
We were kids, and you adapted pretty quickly. You got into the feel of it, and you did what they asked you to do, that's all.
Was there a routine to your day?
Oh yeah, you get up early in the morning, you ran before breakfast, and then you went to breakfast, and then you start your physical training, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Did you shoot weapons while you're in training?
Yes, they took us over to gunnery range, and we learned how to use a rifle. I think we even shot the Tommy guns over there, as I remember, and 45s, 45 911 Colt, you know. It was fun.
Yeah.
What did you do for fun when you were in training?
Pardon?
What did you do for fun when you were in training?
For fun.
Oh, fun? I don't remember too much fun. We'd go on Liberty once in a while over to Newport, and they'd go to the movies or walk around town, go in the stores and chase girls.
What do you remember what the cost of gasoline was during those days, or?
Oh boy, back in the Depression, we were getting gas for 4 or 5 cents a gallon. The gas stations would compete, 4 to 5 cents a gallon. And you could go any place you wanted to for pretty cheap.
So the movies must have cost
I
pennies.
think they were 10 cents a
10
piece.
cents.
Yeah, 10 cents. And what we used to do in the movies, we'd go in and we'd go in the morning and stay all day to see the picture 2 or 3 times.
Did you go to any military schools or receive any specialized training?
Well, after boot, I went to electrical school. That was over on the mainland, and went through electrical school and learned electricity, trained in various types of electrical training.
Electricity on ships was fairly new at that point, or was it pretty established?
Well, they had electricity on ships. I went aboard a minesweeper after that, and I learned how to put the cables out behind the ship, and we worked in the Chesapeake Bay on a training ship, YMS 249, and
Was that your first ship when you entered service?
yes, it was. And it was a training ship, and we had to train crews, new crews for the new ships that were coming out. And we trained them in basically mine sweeping, magnetic mine sweeping. And
that was in the Chesapeake Bay area?
Mm-hmm. I was in Little Creek, Virginia.
Where did you serve right after boot camp?
Well, after boot camp, I went to electrical school, and we learned how to be an electrician.
And then from there you reported to your first ship?
Yes, I reported to the YMS 249 down in Little Creek, Virginia after that.
What was your job on your first ship?
I was a fireman first class, I think, at that time. I got out of school, and I think they had given us a fireman first class rating. And I got a job as a electrician trainee aboard the the YMS 249 under a second class electrician by the name of Davis. And he trained me to be a third class electrician.
So a first class fireman wasn't necessarily your rank. That wasn't your rank.
Yes,
that
was
a training.
No, that was my rank. I went from fireman, from seaman first class in boots.
Okay.
To when I went to electrical school, it was I think fireman third class, and then second class, and then first class when you graduated, and then aboard ship, I struck for the electrician third rating.
And that's when you became a petty officer.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you have to travel out to sea?
At that time, no. We went on a school ship, actually, where we trained crews to be magnetic minesweepers and also contact minesweepers and acoustical minesweepers. And we trained them in the Chesapeake Bay there for, I've forgotten, months, until I got tired of that. And I wanted to get out into the war. And then I asked the skipper to give me a new ship. And he set me up with the USS Quail, where I was another electrician aboard the Quail. And we went to sea.
Did anyone get in any fights or arguments when they were in such close spaces?
Yeah, me. When I was on the YMS 249, I had gained my third class rating at that time. I was shooting for second class. I had my tests in, and I had given my tests in even for first class, but the ship had a cook on it that would come back off Liberty and turn the rheostats on the stove up to full. He'd just turn everything on, and it would blow the electricity on the ship, and I'd have to go up, walk about a quarter of a mile to the control and put the electricity back on the ship, and that teed me off, so I hit him.
Did you ask him not to do that first?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I tried to. We had our arguments about it, you know, and he just couldn't understand why he couldn't turn all the rheostats up on at the same time. He had to turn them up slow. It was his job to turn them up slow because we didn't want him to blow the power off the ship, but he'd blow the power off the ship just for stubbornness, I guess.
So he turned the stove up to start the griddle heating up or whatever, the ovens, and it would blow the circuit breakers?
Blow the circuit breakers, and I'd have to go over and put them back on. So we argued about it. I hit that.
And so is that so you had your second class?
Well, I just about had it, yeah. I lost second class. He went from first class to third class.
So he was the same rank as you after it was all done. So you got in more trouble.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your time in the Pacific.
Pardon?
Let's talk about your time in the Pacific. How did you get to the Pacific Theater? How was the trip abroad?
Well, after the 249, I got off that and got on the USS Quail AM 377, and we went out to Cuba and then down through the Panama Canal, came up along coast of Mexico to San Diego. And from San Diego, I spent a little time there, but not much. And then we went over to Hawaii, to the naval base in Honolulu. And in Honolulu, we had to redo our armament. I think they had, at that time, the submarine warfare had tapered down, so they took off some of the depth charges that they used for submarine warfare and put on two 40 millimeters just in case we ran into a lot of airplanes over in the islands over there. So they added two gun tubs of 40 millimeter guns, and we had to go into the harbor, Pearl Harbor, for that. We stayed there for, I don't know, whatever it took, a month or so. And then we went on over to the islands from there.
Were you minesweeping the whole way after you got out of the Panama Canal?
No, we didn't start sweeping, I guess, until we got out to the islands.
Were you sweeping along Mexico at all?
Yeah, well, we didn't sweep along Mexico, but when we were coming up along Mexico there, wanted to watch one morning, spotted a floating Japanese mine, and we had to stop to shoot that thing, and had some problems. The captain couldn't hit it properly with a rifle, so he tried a Thompson submachine gun on it, and that didn't work. And eventually got to shoot it with a 20 millimeter gun, and it blew up. And I was the only guy wounded on the ship. I got a piece of shrapnel right through a pair of shoes that I had shined 39 times. Damn, I don't know why I ever put them on that morning, but anyhow, I got it in the heel, and the pharmacist mate took the shrapnel out of my heel. But it ruined my shoes.
So you were more concerned with your shoes?
Yeah.
And you didn't have a doctor on board? You had a
No,
pharmacist mate?
No doctor on board, just a pharmacist mate.
And they were able to operate on people if they
Yeah,
needed
he
to?
dug it out of my heel. And
What was your job on your ship that participated in World War II?
in the Pacific? Well, basically, all the electrical duties that were performed, screwing in light bulbs and taking them out, fixing the fans, and taking care of the batteries in the gyro room and that sort of thing. Along with electrical minesweeping, where I had to roll out the cables. I would operate the winch to put the cables out and then go up and put the timer on so that we could time the different fields that the electrical cables set up. And we had one cable longer than the other, and where the current went through the water, it would set up a field on one side and the other, a magnetic field, and then it would explode the mine according to the different types of fields that the timer would set up. Maybe fast, slow, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Did you have any other jobs on the ship?
Yeah, general quarters, I had to go down and listen to orders from the bridge and pass them on to the gun crews or to other people who would do the duties of blowing Y guns to drop depth charges or whatever it was. No, it was a communications type of thing. That's when I got there late one day and put my earphones on, and I had one of those big hats that the earphones fit over, and I didn't get it on fast enough, and they started shooting 40 millimeters up above, and I was underneath the gun tub, and it was like a drum under there, and boy, I'll tell you, it knocked me right to the deck. And ever since then, I've had tinnitus, but what can you do about it?
Now, did you have any other collateral duties on the ship, like ship's barber or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I was the only guy on the ship that had any equipment to do it. I had picked up a barber's clipper, electric clipper in Hawaii when I was there. So I got to be the barber, and I also had to run the movies. I ran all the movies that we had aboard ship, and I had another job. Of course, doing the watch. I'd be on the engine room control and take orders from the bridge and set them up on the various engines and generators and so forth.
Now, did you have any other duties with electrical? So it sounds like a lot of your duties were with electrical equipment. So
Yeah.
the movie projector, the electric clippers.
Yeah.
Did you have any other duties? I remember you always told the story about diving equipment.
Well, yeah, that's a funny part about it. We had a scuba outfit aboard. They didn't call it scuba, they called it something else.
It's
But
well
anyhow,
before the days of scuba.
yeah, it was the first days where you had a handy billy to pump the air, and they pumped the air down to the mask and so forth that you wore underneath the water, and the damn mask, they wouldn't. Other guys didn't like to do it, so they'd say they couldn't breathe under there. But it fit me, and I could breathe underwater. It was fun. So I was the diver.
So you got to inspect the hull of the ship.
Oh yeah, one time we wrapped a line around the screws. One of our minesweeping operations wrapped the line around a screw, and I had to go down and cut it loose. And I remember going down, and you couldn't see too much under the water because the shade of the ship in the light, you couldn't see too much under there. And I had the damn knife turned around backwards, and I so on and so on and so on. Couldn't get the damn thing done. So I came up, and then I saw the knife was in the wrong position. I went down and finally got the line off. Well, dumb.
What did you witness during combat, and in what ways did you interact in combat? What role did your ship have in the war?
Well, usually we're just sweeping with other ships, and I didn't see any real combat that I remember, except maybe combat with the weather, but any real shooting and stuff, I didn't see too much of that.
Did the minesweepers often sweep before the battles so that the ships
We
could
had,
get in?
yeah, most of the battles, the minesweepers had to go in there and clear the way for the ships to get in. They were the first ones in there. And we swept in groups of minesweepers. One would follow the other, and the first one would, clear the way for the other behind it with their sweep gear. And they'd work like that in groups. And any mines that popped up, they'd shoot them down and keep on going.
So when the minesweepers would sweep, they would sweep in groups to sweep a wider area?
Oh yeah, they just set it out one in front of the other like that all the way down. And sweep a channel for other ships to go through.
How did you sweep the mines?
How? It's on one of these things here.
Well, maybe you could just describe it, General Dad, and then we can bring the picture later.
What they would do is they'd take a float and tie it on the end of a line. The float would go down to a depressor that would draw the outboard end of the line from the ship to another depressor that would hold it down from the ship. And along that line, the steel cable actually, they would put clippers that would accept the chain of the mine from the anchor to the mine. It would clip the anchor, the chain to the anchor off with an explosive charge, and then the next mine would hit another one, and another one, and another one down the line. That was contact mines.
And then the mine would be
Mine
released?
would pop up, and then they'd shoot it.
And you'd shoot it with one of your guns?
Yeah. Then they had another way of sweeping that was called acoustic mines. They'd drop looked like a pail, a bucket type thing that was on two arms in front of the ship. They'd drop that down into the water, and it would set up an acoustic rattle, I guess you'd call it, and explode the mines.
So it was a low frequency type of rattle that could go further? Yeah. You could hear it?
Oh yeah, you could hear it. And it would simulate a engine on a ship, and it would blow it up acoustically. Then you had another type of mine, which is magnetic sweeping, which they'd set the cables out, like I said before, and where the longer cable and the shorter cable would set up a circuit through the water and set a field up on either side of it, and explode the mine. And we'd do that with a timer that would set up different fields, different kinds, different frequencies, and so forth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there were also pressure mines that kind of came out.
Well, they were towards the end of the war. They designed they called it something else but pressure mines, but it was a pressure type of thing where the pressure of a ship's body in the water, the pressure underneath the ship as it went through the water, would set off a mine. I can't remember the name of it.
And you had
a simulation, I guess.
And you had a way of sweeping those mines?
Yeah, they took some old Liberty ships that were made out of concrete. The hulls were concrete, and they'd take all the control equipment off and remotely put it up to the bridge so that the guys would be way up above any mines that would be set off by the pressure ship. And then the pressure of the mine would blow up under the concrete, and maybe the ship would sink, so they could get it off quickly from being up on top bridge, top of the bridge, and they'd get off quickly that way.
And do you recall any
They-
incidents? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
They offered a lot of us aboard regular minesweepers quick departure from the service if we went aboard. It was kind of a volunteer sort of thing. And they offered us, I think you had to spend 30 days on one of these things, sweeping pressure mines, and then you would get discharged.
Did a lot of guys go for that?
I don't know. I think so, probably. There was a number of guys that wanted to get out, and they'd go for it. But I didn't like that idea. I stayed aboard the Wally. Yeah.
Can you reflect on any casualties or destruction that you witnessed in the Pacific during the war?
Well, there was a typhoon that hit Buckner Bay in Okinawa that was rather destructive, winds of 80 miles an hour, I think. And I saw a YMS. The first wave hit the YMS and took the superstructure and moved it backward, and the second one swiped the superstructure off the top of the ship, and the ship sank.
What is the superstructure?
Superstructure is the bridge and the funnels, the smoke funnels, and all the living quarters that were above deck.
What were your emotions when witnessing this?
Pardon?
What were your emotions when you witnessed this?
Very poor emotions, I think. To see somebody go down like that, it's a very sad thing to see. And not nice. People don't like to see destruction like that. I didn't anyhow.
How do you get through
But
that?
we made it through. We sailed out. I think the next day there was 132 ships up on a beach, something like that. And there was a couple hundred ships or more that were injured in some way. We weren't injured. We were smacked around a lot by the typhoon, but we made it through. And after that, we had a detail to send some volunteers ashore to see if we could find people. They gave us 45 caliber, 45 911 Colt to put on our as sidearms to go ashore. We wore metal helmets and what have you, and went ashore to see if we could find people.
Were you hurt in combat or during your time in the military? If so, how?
Well, the only time I was, like I said before, I was hurt with the shrapnel in my heel. I think I told you about that before.
What was your position on the ship during wartime or general quarters?
Well, 10 general quarters, I had a station to go to for communications, and I put on earphones and a large helmet over the top of the earphones, and I had to communicate messages from the bridge to gun crews or depth charge crews or whatever.
Let's talk about friends and family during the war years.
Pardon?
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home while you were deployed? Did you
Well,
write letters?
Yeah, we wrote letters. Most of the time I wrote a letter a day at least to either my mother or my girlfriend or my brother. There's a letter right here that I sent to my brother, but it never got to him. It was traced around in different places, but it never got to him, and I got it back. It tells quite a story. If you want me to read it?
Sure.
Yeah.
How much did it cost to send a letter back then?
2 cents and 6 cents, 8 cents it cost for this letter. I think there was many of the letters that we sent free. I said to my brother, "Well, sailor, how goes it with you? Haven't written in a long time. I thought it's about time I did. Few things been happening out here lately. Nothing spectacular, of course, except one of our sister ships, Christmas, went off kinda calmly, except for the night before when some of the moonshine boys got pretty tight on some corn that they brought aboard ship. Didn't have any corn, so they substituted raisins. Can you imagine one of the drunks stole a 25-pound turkey? And some officers gave some officers a bad time finding out who done it. They threw a record machine over too. Oh well, boys will be boys. Have a year that we laid to at Nagasaki for the day and swept before there. Let's see, the swept before the day there, and had a few days off and headed south 60 miles for a check sweep at Nomanosaki. One of our guys had a appendix test for his Christmas present. We lost a ship, a minesweeper like the one I'm on, up in Nagasaki Key. Well, not Nagasaki Ko, I guess it is. The number was a 371. I think it was a minivet. Had a lot of buddies on her. She took a mine up the ass and blew off her fantail to the 40 millimeter gun tubs through the machine shop and after bulkhead. To the aft engine rooms, they were dropping Dan buoys at the time. A lot of deckhands, bosun's mates were back there. 2 minutes after she started to roll over, the bow rose up, straight up, and stayed there like a fishing bobber for about 10 minutes. Some guys were so shocked they had to be thrown over. The skipper was the last to leave. He dove from the flying bridge as she took her final plunge. in Little Creek, I had asked this skipper if I could be on his crew to be with my buddies. Every electrician on her was killed except the chief. He got his legs blown off. Half of the crew were saved, 43 in all, 50 men killed and the rest wounded. So Jamie, don't let them tell you to sell you on the sweep fleet. They're no damn good. This ship was built in Savannah, Georgia. Out of all the AMs built there, these are but a few of us left. I got my fingers crossed. And this damn outfit will make a good Christian out of me yet. Well, kid, please, I guess you got home for the holidays. I'm glad someone was there with Mom and Dad and to have Christmas. It's like old times. Remember them, Jimmy? Wake up early in the morning, down the tree and break open the presents. Remember the trains? We had trains around the thing, the Christmas tree. And I'd like to read something that's on the back of this letter. There was a poem I wrote. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the ship not a creature was stirring, not a word left a lip. The big hook was dropped 100 fathoms below, and we hoped old St. Nicholas would bring us a blow. Each stocking was flung with the greatest of care around a beam overhead or goodness knows where. Each man was tucked secure in his bed, while visions of pin-up girls danced in his head. And then all of a sudden I heard such a clatter, I rose from my sleep to find out what was the matter. From my sack, jumped down to the floor, and then I saw him there by the door. I knew in a minute when he told me his beef. He was the watch and I was his relief. Oh, that's what kids will do, you know. I just thought that would be interesting. Was to me.
Did you form any friendships or bonds that you still have today?
I had some buddies, yes. I had a buddy that came out of the service with, named Leslie Lucas. He came out of Red Bank, New Jersey. And we buddied after the war with him for quite a while, chasing girls and going to dances and doing all kinds of things down the shore, fishing, hunting. And it was another buddy that was in the service with me. But that's the only guy I remember coming out of service. And, you know, when I was in the service, I met a few buddies from home. There was 4 of us that were written up in a paper in Raleigh. My mother put it in there, I guess. I met 4 of my old friends in Hawaii, in Honolulu. And we spent some time in Honolulu together in that time. That was when the ship was getting re-rigged for airplane war instead of undersea war.
How did your family and friends communicate with you?
Well, we'd send letters, and I'd get letters from my mother and father, and some aunts and uncles used to write to me too. And there was a communication going back, but sometimes you'd get a pile of letters and you'd have to read them all at once. The mail would catch up with you. But it was strictly letters. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about life after World War II ended. Where were you when the war ended? How did you hear that the war had ended?
At the time the war ended, I was in we had come back to Hawaii. I forget where we were, but anyhow, we were in Hawaii when the war ended. And there was quite a few times when it ended. We'd get a communication that the war ended, and it didn't. And then a few days later, and it didn't. I think there was 3 times when the war ended for us in Hawaii because of communications that were wrong. And each time, as I remember, each time they'd hear about it. Every ship in the Navy started shooting their signal flares up in the air. And one time, there was a ship that was oiling. An oiler had been transferring fuel oil to another ship, and that's when a red flag was up, and you wouldn't dare shoot anything at that. And somebody was shooting from one of the ships. These flares into the air, skyrockets, and boy, I'll tell you, the MPs were out there trying to find them who it was. I think it was somebody on our ship. But I remember going up and being on the bridge, on the searchlight tower, and taking the searchlights, and each ship would turn the searchlights up over Pearl Harbor so that it was just like a globe over the top of the whole part of Pearl Harbor. It was beautiful. And then with the, shooting the skyrockets underneath that, it was very pretty.
Did you hear of the war in Germany while you were in the Pacific?
Not much. We'd get some communication, and the skipper would, announce different things would happen. But there was not a lot of that going on that I remember. But when things happened over there, the skipper would usually announce it on the audio system of the ship.
And what were you doing for VJ Day? Were you in Japan area?
No, I was in Hawaii on VJ Day. And then we went up and we became the occupational sweep group in the islands and up to Japan, Okinawa.
So minesweeping operations didn't stop when the war ended? They kept
No,
on.
that's when they started, really, for us. There was sweep operations going on before that. I think I got a letter in there about some operations that were happening in the Philippines and other places. But sweep operations were going on and on and on. It's terrible that the media and other people in service and everything put down the minesweepers. They don't, it was one of the most dangerous groups of operations that they ever had in the service. And minesweepers said, like, for example, they issue these magazines now about medals, the medal magazines that they put out for the various medals that you can buy for the different colors and so forth they wear. You never hear anything about minesweepers. They put out hats for the Marines, and they put out hats for the airplanes and the air pilots and everything. You never see a hat for a minesweeper.
But you continued to work many years after the...
Oh, those guys are still working probably,
Yeah.
trying to get mines up, but I guess now it's pretty much over.
They still find World War II era
Oh,
mines that they have to sweep.
Yeah, and they're dangerous. The damn things never get blown up anymore.
They
But
lasted
can
for a
still
long
find
time.
them.
Did Japanese continue to fight after the surrender?
Yeah. Oh, I remember going through some areas of Japan, between islands and things like that, where them damn Japs they'd get an old musket gun and shoot it at the boat as it went by. It was kind of stupid, but
So they didn't know that the war had...
well, they knew, but they'd see an American ship and they'd take an old musket gun down off the wall and shoot at it.
Yeah, there were still animosities, yeah.
But after a while, that kind of slowed down. The Japanese people are very nice people, for the most part. There was some gung-ho Japs, I guess, but the Japanese people, we've been back to Japan. Mom and I went back for a reunion of her high school class. One of her classmates got to be a priest over in Japan, Father Jim. And one time at a reunion of her class, he invited all of us to come over to Japan for a reunion, and we went. There was 11 of us that went over to Japan as a group to have a reunion in Japan. The people in Japan, in his parish, would come down in the morning in their cars and take 2 or 3 of us in a car and take us all over Japan. We've been all over the central part of Japan.
And was that the first time
for 11 days? Huh?
Was that the first time you were back to Japan after the war?
Yeah, that was well, the only time really.
Yeah.
But we've developed friends, and they've been over to our house in the United States, and
you sponsored
we
a
still
Japanese
still contact, with them on Christmas and so forth. They're nice people. Not everybody was that way. Some of them. I remember going into a town in Japan after the war. We'd walk into the town, and the town would be full of people all over the streets and everything. As you walked in, less and less people. And as you walked through them, they'd dissipate, and you wouldn't see them. You get in the middle of town, there wouldn't be anybody there.
Were they
Then,
afraid?
as you got out, started walking out, they'd come back in behind you.
Were they afraid of you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think they were afraid or apprehensive.
How did you return home?
What?
How did you return home?
Oh, I came across country we came back into San Diego. Our ship was under a restriction. under a restriction for selling cigarettes on the Japanese to the Japanese people. We would take cigarettes ashore, and you could buy anything with cigarettes over there. They loved our cigarettes. And the skipper and I and all the rest of the crew got caught one time with cigarettes in our jackets and under our clothes. And we got called down for that, and they restricted us for 2 weeks in Japan. And then the skipper said, "No, we got to go," and he made it so that when we got back to the States after the war, on the way home, we'd put up the restriction, not in Japan, but in San Diego. So we had 2 weeks to restrict ourselves from, that we were supposed to stay aboard ship, but my skipper let us go on leave, but we had to stay in California. And we all went up to Los Angeles and any place in California we wanted to go. I went to see my grandparents out there. They weren't really my grandparents, but my grandfather was a Rosicrucian, and he was listed in Who's Who as a philosopher, I guess, of some nature, but it was a religious type of thing. But anyhow, he set up the Rosicrucian sanctuary out there in California. So I went up to see him in Oceanside. He was dead, but his second wife, Augusta Foss Heindel, he had changed his name to Heindel. And anyhow, he set up this beautiful sanctuary out there, big marble churches, and she took about an hour and a half on a electric car to take me around the grounds and see the whole thing. And that's where I went, and then I went on up to San Francisco, or Los Angeles, and came home. Came back to the ship, and then we went back home, you know. And then I traveled across country, down through the Texas route and southern route, and on up.
So the ship stayed
train
in San Diego, and you came back across country.
Yeah, they put her there, decommissioned her there in San Diego.
Were you there for the decommissioning?
I don't really remember it. If it was, I was up in Oceanside, you know. But they started putting her in mothballs when I was there.
And did you receive your honorable discharge in San Diego?
No, I came back to New York. I think Lido Beach. Was it Lido?
Long Island?
Yeah, Long Island. It was out there, and they discharged me from there, and then I came home on a train.
So after you were honorably discharged from the United States Navy, you got a certificate from the Lido Beach, Long Island, New York Personnel Separation Center, which certified that Wallace Frank Gordon, electrician's mate, third class, U.S. and honors, honorably discharged from the United States Naval Service on the 23rd day of 1946, April 1946. And this certificate is awarded as testimony of fidelity and obedience. Is that your DD 214?
Yeah. Ratings held was AS. That means seaman. Associate seaman? I don't know, AS. Then second class seaman, third class, second class. I went from second class to fireman third class, fireman second class, and then I went to EM3C, foreign war, yeah. Description of rating in the booklet. Recruit training, Newport, Rhode Island. American Theater Medal, Asiatic Pacific with 2 stars, Victory Medal. And I think there was another medal or two too that they gave me after that. Okay, and they said I was ready for college training. Work in the electrical line, and that's about it.
Did your family or community do anything for you when you returned?
I think I had a party or two at the home, and I know there was a couple times I got a party from my girlfriend at the time, and that's about it.
How did you readjust to your normal life?
When we first got out, the law set up a way to get 5220. It was $52 for 20 weeks. So we pretty much lived on that until we got jobs. But what I would do with my $20 is get down the shore and have a good time. And I spent a lot of time with friends that would go swimming down the shore, fishing, hunting, just taking a break, you know. It was a lot of fun. Those days were good days, good times.
What did you do when you returned? Did you use the GI or Montgomery Bill to go to college?
Yes, I eventually, well, I worked for a while. I got into setting tile. Well, I think my first job was with the Railway Express Company. I worked for them for months, a few months. And I got to know a fella that worked for the Altico Tile Company. And he got me a job with Altico Tile, so I learned another trade. The first trade I learned was when I was going to high school. I worked for a tinsmith that lived next door, and he taught me tinsmith, and in my spare time I helped him out, putting gutters on houses and doing tinsmith work in different ways. The second job I had was this Altico Tile Company, setting aluminum tile, which was new on the market at that time. And I got to be pretty good at it, and had crews working for me, setting tile. And eventually, I got out of the tile business because they wanted me to break some union rules that they had gotten me into. I went into the union, the Carpenters Union, which was the only one that would take aluminum tile guys at that time. And I went down to the union hall and told them that they wanted us to do some things that weren't union. And so then I sort of quit that after I got into the Carpenters Union. And I went to the Carpenters, and they put me to work in raising a factory for the manufacture of wallboard for the United States Gypsum Company. So they gave me a millwright card, and I went down and I was a millwright. I remember walking in one day and the steward said to me, "Well, get your toolbox and get your overalls on." He says, "I'll take you in and show you around." I said, "I got no toolbox. I got no overalls." So he took his overalls off and he gave me a wrench. I remember that big long wrench was a point on one side and a wrench on the other. And I had to go in and do a big hydropulper for this wood that came in that they churned up to make wallboard paper out of. And so I learned the millwright's trade after that. I worked for them for quite a while as a millwright, made big money. Geez, boy, that was great. And I come home from work one day and my father asked for the cat, after a bottle of ketchup. I don't know, he hit me with the bottle of ketchup for what I said.
So you were talking like a
I was talking
labor,
like a
labor from the union.
sailor. Anyhow, I quit millwrighting and decided to go on to college at that time. And then I went to Montclair College.
How did you choose Montclair?
My brother was there. He was 1 year ahead of me in college.
Even though he's younger?
He was younger, but he talked me into it. I went up there and took the test. I remember sitting down next to a girl that was a real nice girl, and she helped me out with that test. Anyhow, she and I were the only two to pass the test. And that was Betty. Then I got into college, and I did pretty well there. Got involved with the college politics and got to be president of the student of the freshman class, and next year I ran for student government, and I got that. Then I ran for president of the Student Government Association. I got that, and I coasted in the last year, and I got through it and did a pretty good job, and got my teacher's certificate. But I never taught. I did my practice teaching, but I didn't sort of like it. I wanted to make more money. The teachers were getting paid chicken feed, and I didn't like that. So I got into sales work, and I worked for the Rotus plywood, and did a great job selling plywood and made a lot of money. And I left that and got into selling building materials for the National Gypsum Company. And after a while, after 4 or 5 years, I didn't like it anymore. So I went from there to a couple of distributors, didn't like that. Finally, a friend of mine got me a job as an industrial engineer for the Ford Motor Company. And I worked for them for more than 20 years, and I don't know, 21, something like that. And that was it. And then I retired. Retired at 55, I have it. How about that?
Did the memory of war times affect your life? Did it cause you to have fear or anxiety?
No, I don't think so. I was never afraid of anything. I did what I had to do, that's all.
Do you have any contact with anyone you knew or made friends with during the war times? Have you met other veterans that served with you in the war?
Well, just that one guy, that's about it. Leslie Lucas. He was the only guy I knew from the war. I've known other veterans, yes. I go up to the veterans hospital for treatment and so forth. My prime doctor is a Veterans Administration doctor. Wonderful gal. She's a Korean. Nice gal.
What did you learn from your experience with the war?
I don't think I can learn. I learned very much.
Any experiences that you learned from service?
Everything you learn is an experience that you use. You use the knowledge that you build up over time to do better things all the time, to do more things, to learn things. You're always learning. I learned today, but I don't learn like the kids today. Kids with the computers, they're just out of this world, you know. I know how to use a computer only because I worked at it, but probably the only thing I do on a computer is the email and look at the news and look up questions that I have in my head. That's about it. But the kids today, boy, they're something, aren't they? The following story is a copy of an article I recently found on Minesweeps. It is only recognition other than radio statement, minesweeps are still sweeping the coast of Japan, that I have heard about. It explains and tells why, I think, exactly what my job is and has been, so I thought perhaps you would like to read it. Some of it is quite interesting. The cocky little fleet plodded slowly up the channel between the two jagged islands that spat red flashes from concealed mouths of their rocky caves. The dozens of mines, their ugly horns fouled with barnacles and seaweed, bobbed on the surface in the wakes of the slashing sweeps like grotesque, oversized ping-pong balls. Water spouts from Japanese shell bursts walked threateningly out from the shore. It was an unusual, perilous, and hectic pass. Helmsmen wrenched their rudders to port and starboard, swinging their vessels clear of the deadly globes sawed loose from their cables by preceding sweepers. The inch guns barked back at the Japs as fast as the gun crews could ram projectiles into the breaches. Smoke and clouds of dust curtained the island's emplacements. Enemy fire faltered, fizzled, stopped, and still the mines kept coming. For 3 days, the fleet's minesweepers plowed the depths between the Corregidor and Carabobo Islands. From the ordeal has finished, they had forced the waters to disgorge 401 Jap mines, were either detonated or sunk. The way was clear once more for the American vessels to enter Manila Bay after 3 years of Japanese control. For a division of 6,000-ton minesweepers, the total was almost inconceivable, but considering the record, it was to be expected in a little more than a year while clearing subsurface fields from the Kwajalein to Bruin Bay. That division swept more than 900 mines from the waters around the enemy-held islands, so that landing craft and warships later cargo vessels could storm, support, and supply beachheads hacked out of by combat troops. Minesweeping at its best is an unpleasant task. Its worst is one of the most perilous jobs in the Navy, always fraught with potential death, always injecting some violent action into what should be tranquil day of even the bravest man. No matter how many mines the sweep crew had cleared, it never loses its respect for death dealing and spheres that can disintegrate a ship in one powerful blast or kill a man 100 yards away with a chunk of jagged metal. In mine warfare, even friends and enemies, without proper cautious treatment, an American mine can kill Americans or Japs with the same indiscriminate violence. Even the surrender of Japan, the men of the sweeps must go on their grim duty, for the seas around Japan must be cleared of all mines if American ships are to supply without danger the armies of occupation. There will be thousands of Jap mines to sweep and an undisclosed number of American mines dropped by superfortresses in their blockade of enemy home islands. While Navy crews may relax from the strain of battle, the mine men will have to continue at the war with hidden, murderous enemy. In the Pacific, the sweeps played a vital role. The only task forces that operated without the help of minesweepers were the fleets that struck from the air. Every harbor, every anchorage, every inlet and bay in the Pacific in which U.S. ships now sail with safety first had to be cleared of mines or threat of them. The waters of every Jap-occupied island are swarming with mines, according to the Navy amphibious plans until proved otherwise. For men who have to prove the plans right or wrong, it's almost as tough to sweep clean mine waters as it is to cut loose a score of underwater explosives every 100 yards. Perhaps tougher, the mental strain of moving at slow speed within the range of enemy shore batteries, not knowing if the ship will be blown in the air, is enough to change a man's conditioned to this type of action into a white-haired idiot. Mines as weapons were born hundreds of years ago during the siege of Antwerp, when the Dutch destroyed 800 Spaniards by use of a clockwork impelled explosive vessel. Various other nations took up the practice, modifying the original idea until at the time of the Civil War, mines had been developed into major defensive ordnance. Mines were the reason for Admiral David Farragut's oft-quoted "Damn the torpedoes full speed ahead" during the war, during the Mobile Bay action. Torpedoes, Farragut so heartily damned corresponded to the present-day mines, and Farragut's lead ship, Tecumseh, had been sunk by one. I thought that was something that should be said in this interview. And I think it tells of people who just don't understand minesweeping, and they don't give it the proper credit. I think minesweeping should be given more credit in the history books. So I read it.
And in the future.
Yeah. It's people don't look at minesweepers as anything. You can't go to a magazine that gives pictures of medals and find medals for minesweeping. It's just for minesweeping. You know, airplane guys, they get all kinds of medals.
It's true.
But not the minesweepers. They're never given proper credit.
A humble service,
Yep.
a noble service.
A tough service. It's easy enough to go on a minesweeper. You don't do nothing. You just pull these things through the water and sweep the mines. But boy, it's right there ready for you to blow up. I got to show you that picture. I took that picture. There's a guy coming down in a parachute right behind me there. Isn't that a good picture?
That was a selfie?
I took it myself, yeah. With a Kodak Medalist, I think I had at the time. It was the ship's camera on the quill.
Yeah.
Like that picture.
Grandpa, did you ever do anything or bring contraband onto the ship?
The only time I remember any contraband coming aboard ship outside of maybe a bottle of liquor or something was a dog that we found in Japan, and we had him on board ship on the way home to the United States from Japan. He was quite a little dog, and we kept him in a secret spot down in the aft end of the ship. That was supposed to be I think a watertight compartment, and we kept them in there. So the skipper wouldn't see them. And
So you kept him hidden back from Japan to the
Yeah.
transit to Hawaii?
yep, and after Hawaii, someplace along in there, a couple of the boys got drunk on some raisin jack that they raised. They made in the bilges, and one of the guys threw the dog over the side. Poor dog. But that's the only time I remember any contraband.
Dad, did you ever cross the equator?
Yeah, I did cross the equator once.
And so you were a royal shellback?
Yeah, but I don't think the ceremony that we had was anything like most of the ships had. But I crossed the equator.
Yeah, and so this was the shellback certificate from the time that you crossed the equator. And it says, domain of Neptunus Rex, to all sailors, wherever ye may be, and to all mermaids, sea serpents, whales, sharks, dolphins, skates, suckers, lobsters, crabs, and other living things of the sea, greetings. Know ye that on this date, 1945, latitude such and such, there appeared within our royal domain the USS Quail, bound for Japan. Be it remembered that said vessel officers and crew thereof, having been inspected and passed by ourselves and our royal staff, be it known by ye all sailors, mariners, and landlubbers, who may be honored by this presence, that Wallace Gordon, having been found worthy to be numbered as one of our trusty shellbacks, has been gathered to fold and duty initiated into the solemn mysteries of the ancient order of the deep. Be it further understood by the virtue and the power invested in me, I hereby command my subjects to show due honor and respect to him whenever he enter our realm. Disobey this order under penalty of the royal displeasure. Anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
Some certificate. They still give out shellback certificates today.
Yeah, you got one.
Yeah.
Who gives those out?
Yeah, the United States Navy still has authorized, the captain signs it and they have a seal of the ship that you're on, and they'll give that out to sailors who have crossed the equator, and you go through the initiation ceremony, and if you're not a shellback at the time you cross the equator, you're a pollywog, and you have to go through the initiation. So. And what is this, Dad?
Oh, that's a ruptured duck.
What does that signify?
That's a discharge, as an honorary discharge thing that you sew on your uniform as you were discharged.
So from the service, you got a ruptured duck saying that you served in World War II, and
Yeah.
you could wear that on your uniform?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Would you change anything about your experience if you could go back?
I think I would. I think at the time that I was going into electrical school, they asked me if I wanted to go into officer training. And I said no. I guess because at that time my buddies, I wanted to stay with my friends, and do the things that we had trained to do up to that point. But I should have, I guess if I had to do it again, I'd go into officer training. I didn't do that. I wish I had. Wish I. Look at your father. See what it did for him? Yeah.
Did it impact your life in a good way or a bad way?
The service is a training for life. It's good for you. It disciplines you. It helps you think properly. I would recommend everybody be in the service. It did a great deal for me, I know. It just kept me going in the right direction all the time.
In the mail, you got a letter from the Secretary of the Navy,
Yep,
James Forrestal.
yep. Great guy.
And maybe you wanted to read that. This
I'll
is
read it, sure.
what every serviceman and woman got when they left service.
Yeah. This is from the Secretary of the Navy in Washington, May 18th, 1946. Dear Mr. Gordon, I have addressed this letter to reach you after all the formalities of your separation from active service are completed. I've done so because this formality, but as clearly as I know how to say it, I want the Navy's pride in you, which is my privilege to express, to reach your civil life and remain with you always. You have served in the greatest Navy in the world. It crushed the enemy fleets at once, receiving the surrenders of only 4 months apart. It brought our land-based air power within bombing range of the enemy and set our ground armies on the beachheads of final victory. It performed the multitude of tasks necessary to support those military operations. No other Navy at any time has done so much. For your part in these achievements, you deserve to be proud and as long as you live. The nation which you served at the time of crisis will remember you with gratitude. The best wishes of the Navy go with you into civilian life. Good luck. Sincerely yours, James Forrestal, it's Secretary of the Navy. To Wallace Gordon, 623 Jakes Avenue, Rahway, New Jersey.